All right, I think we're good to go. Hello everyone. Welcome to our third AMA of the term. Today we have with us Dr. Thomas Britz, who is a maths and lecturer in the School of Maths and Statistics now. They changed their name, I think. Is it now Maths and Stats, the school?
Oh, there's something about that.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Right. So the way this is going to work is that myself and Zach and Tom later will go through and we'll ask some questions, and you answer however you feel fit, words are hard, and we'll just prompt you when it's time to move on, and then there's some new questions. There is a link where people are submitting questions, and they can vote for like the top questions and stuff like that. So to start off, is there actually an echo?
Yeah, it's a little bit. If you talk a bit quieter.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit quieter in this microphone. To start off, let's ask a very important question. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
A nice question. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me here. I look forward to it, but I can't evade the question forever. I know it's of high importance and will split the masses from the start, but no, it doesn't. I mean, what are you doing with pineapple on pizza? It's almost as bad as beetroot in burger. But I've been here in Australia long enough that I've gone feral, I've gone native, and now I actually like burgers with beetroot. But I don't think I'll ever like pizzas with pineapple. My apologies. Sorry if I've now cast half the audience away.
I think we actually had more people join when you said that. So, nice. Cool. Awesome. Next question. You good?
Oh, cool. So our next question here is, what's something you wish you could teach at UNSW but currently don't?
I was actually talking about that just an hour ago in the lecture. I'd love to be teaching the course that I built a couple of years ago, combinatorics. It's what is it, Math 5055 or something like that, or I never get it right, 5505, one of those. At the moment, it's being taught by Anita Liebenauer, who's awesome, far better at researching combinatorics than me, and probably has made a better course out of it. But when you get up sort of the higher level courses, you get more and more freedom. And when you get up to postgraduate courses, then often the lecturers or professors, whatever, who are making the course have the freedom to completely do what they want. And that's what I did with this course. So I completely erased what had been before and built it up in my way of doing things. And I enjoyed it so much. But after two rounds of teaching it, I had to share my toys, and now lead. But I hope one day that I'll get back to that and in general, teach more discrete math, flavored stuff like 3411, 3521. But the other areas of mathematics are fine too. But this is where my heart. This is where my heart lies. So,
cool. Awesome. Great. I haven't done combinatorics, but I've heard a few people who've done it have really enjoyed it. So it's interesting. Okay, so another controversial question: is water wet?
Well, it depends on what temperature and, what sort of person you are. If you're like a little insect water working, then, water walking, then, you're too small to feel it as wet. But, I feel it when it's raining. On the way here, I was glad that it didn't. But, if it's ice or if it's that weird stuff that you get when you get real, like, does water, maybe some of you listeners know, that, how you have superconductivity, you've got also superfluidity. Like when you get really beyond ice and get like really, really cold, suddenly you have weird properties. I think I'm confusing that with hydrogen, but hydrogen, oxygen. So is water wet? Yeah, it depends. But today it wasn't.
Okay.
I suppose the property of wetness is that you get it on you and you can't get rid of it. Then you're wet. If it doesn't stick to you, like if you're a bubble of oil or something, then water isn't wet.
Interesting. My mic's working? Yeah, cool. Awesome. So we've got another question coming in, and this one is, when did you first realize your potential for mathematics? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, that's a great question, and thanks for asking. I've always been sort of a nerdily good at maths and liked maths when I was a kid. I had nerd parents who sort of nudged me into those directions, so it was natural to me. But I didn't think that I'd end up doing maths for a living. I was thinking more, oh yeah, architecture, that could be cool, or philosophy, that would be really cool. Maybe I'll actually understand something. But then when I went to uni and took a couple of courses and I started off, I ditched the philosophy. Sometimes I regret that, but I took physics because I thought that might give me, instead of just a lot of talk about reality, maybe I'd learn something about reality, which was very naive. I laugh at it now, but then I had that as physics and maths, and then I figured out quickly, I'm not very good at physics. I can do it, I can get okay grades, but I just don't understand it properly. Not like I do maths, and actually I'm sort of good at maths, and then I discovered combinatorics in second or third year, and then I specialized and thought, yeah, this is actually awesome, fun stuff. So this is what I want to do, and yeah.
Cool, awesome. Going back to the question list, Zach.
Next one here. Yeah, cool. So our next question is, what is the favorite course you have taught? Maybe you'd like to prelude this by telling everyone which courses you have taught first, and then your favorite.
I think many years back when I was I suppose I've been teaching most of my life, and maybe some of you have too, like helping your friends out at school, or or then doing a bit of paid tutoring and stuff. And I have to say that's one of the best things that you can do, not only to learn how to teach, but also to communicate in general, to get rid of your shyness. I was morbidly, painfully shy, and still am a little bit today, but teaching helps you a lot with that, and also just to learn subjects really well. And then when you get higher up, then you can go from tutoring to lecturing, or if you're in industry or government, then talking to a lot of people. So it's useful stuff. So it's been quite a spread of things, maths and chemistry, physics, English, Danish, history, all the high school stuff. Danish, maybe not for you, some of you, but But and then at university I've tutored and lectured mainly in linear algebra courses, in discrete courses, probability stuff, which I also enjoyed. And I've mostly avoided calculus, not because I don't like it, but because at our school and generally in a lot of universities, if you sort of can carve out your domain, like I like teaching this, and you get sort of good at it or familiar with it, and therefore you are not familiar with the other parts that you've sort of avoided, then your head of school or head of department might be kind to you and say, okay, you stick to doing that. And, and if your school is really big, like ours is, it's one of the biggest in the world, in fact, we have to sort of divide and conquer, so to speak. So we've got statistics and applied and pure that often overlap, but just for administrative purposes, we keep separate. And within each of those, you have, like, for instance, calculus and algebra and discrete are a little bit separated. But some of these overlap, and I wouldn't mind teaching any other courses, but my favorite has to be, if we talk about only teaching and not mentoring and, all of those sort of supervision and stuff, then I've got to say combinatorics, some flavor of combinatorics, which, like, first year, third year, post-grad, it's hard to say. Each of them are really fun in each of their ways. Like first year stuff, it's not super hard if you already know it, but there the challenge gets to be how to get a whole lot of people like you possibly to understand it quickly. There's so much information overload, and you just have to learn a lot of new things in a lot of new ways that you aren't used to. And how can I help you do that in a really, minimize the pain and trauma way, and possibly even a fun way? And then you get to third year where people sort of know the score, and then there's different challenges and joys. And when you're up to sort of the upper level of things, then everyone can do their shit, so to speak. But there you have to. There, the emphasis is more on enjoying, understanding really deeply, and encouraging people to do things themselves so that they can, fly from the nest and, so to speak. So each part of the stage, these stages has their own joys and fun challenges.
Cool, awesome. That was a much different answer than I was actually expecting. I'd never actually thought about the different sort of levels of university and how they sort of approach each other.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. So another question coming in here. So when and why did you move to Australia?
I'll try to keep this short because it's a long story. But my dad was German, He's like 82 now, so he got me old and I'm old. So this is a long time ago. He was born in 1939 in Germany, where the war broke out. And so he was basically starving most of his childhood, and as most German kids were. And funny enough, it was happy memories, mostly about food. Like one day we got cabbage soup, and all the parents were looking at this big bowl of soup and didn't eat it until all the kids had eaten it all, and they looked so hungry, but they didn't eat it because there was kids. Like stories like that. And then later on in life, I heard, okay, there's also stuff about being shot at and bayonets through store bales, and but that's not interesting. Let's get back to the cabbage soup. That's my dad. But anyway, so they had a chance to come to Australia. Australia was wanting more workforce, a bit like actually throughout the history, and they were given a free ticket to sail to Australia and then be interned into a happy internment camp, where they worked for factories down in near Wollongong and then settled there. And then he met my mum, who was born in Australia, and they then headed off various places with their education and careers, and got me when I was in Germany, but came to Australia. But while they'd been in Germany, they liked Denmark. They went on a little weekend holiday, and they said, "Oh, that's an awesome place." So then there was a job offer in Denmark, which my dad took. And then after a couple of years, they say, "Oh, we've made a mistake. We miss our friends and family, so back to Australia." And then we said, "Oh, we've made a mistake. Denmark was better." And then back to Denmark, and then they got stuck there, and that's where I have childhood memories from Australia, about 3 years or 4 years worth, but most of it's from Denmark. And so I happily lived there, and then I got my degree and moved around a bit, but thought, okay, I'm staying in Denmark, it looks like, and I am beginning to feel properly Danish and so forth. So, okay, I'll renounce my Australian citizenship in order to get my Danish citizenship, because at the time you couldn't have both. And then about a year later, after this long, I think it took about 7 years to get, then the year after, my wife at the time said, "Hey, for my PhD studies, I found a supervisor in Sydney." Yay! So there we have Danish passports, and okay, we moved to Sydney. I'm very happy about that. But there's a bit of struggle with early careers and bridging visas non-stop, and until I finally got back an Australian passport, but the laws had changed, luckily, just a year before that. And now I have both, and that's a long story, and I meant it to be short, but sorry about that.
No, that's so interesting.
Okay, interesting. So the top one there.
Sure.
Yeah. So we've got a interesting question here. Any pro tips for 1081?
Do you work? No. Well, actually, there are a couple of, let's sort of limit to 3. Don't be scared. You can't do stuff now, possibly, but that's the purpose of the course, that you learn how to do stuff. So it might be a little bit intimidating to begin with, but you will learn. The second thing is that it's very much a course about thinking, unlike the other courses in first or second year maths. So it's a very different style that you might be used to from high school, where you might just have to learn something off by heart. Here, it won't really help you if you learn a formula off by heart, because they might tweak the formula to be different in the test or exam. So you got to understand. But once you get over the fear of that, then you find out, I like thinking. If you're good at it, which you will be, then you'll probably like being good at it and probably like what you do. And then you can use this thinking power for fun and for upgrading your brain. So try to think of it in that term. And the third is that it is actually a hard course for a first year course. I'd really call it a second year course. But it's good that they teach it we teach it in first year, because it has a lot of important fundamentals that you can use even in other first year courses. So it's a hard course, but worth taking. Put some effort into it. Okay, one more, a fourth. If you want to skip lectures, okay, fine. Some people just want to read the notes by themselves, fine. But try to do the tutorial problems. Don't skip them, because the more you do tutorial problems and really do the online weekly quizzes ahead of time and understand what's going on, you're going to be so much better off later on in the semester and the term, the trimester, and in the lab tests and the exam. So you won't have to panic at the end of it and not get what you wanted out of it.
Something that actually stuck with me. I'm not sure if this is still the same from when I took discrete, but I remember in the first tutorial you sit down and they go, "All right, try and solve these, and you get the questions from throughout the whole course.
Yeah.
So I guess it comes back to the whole, don't be scared. You're not going to know all this, but
yeah.
that was a fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't just, really scare people. I hope that they react like you
No,
did.
it was good. It was good. Cool. So our next question here is, what do you do in your spare time?
Oh, I love that. That assumes that professors, lecturers, whatever, have spare time. You know how you're busy, and you're really busy. I see you, and I feel sorry for you, that how busy you are. Well, it only gets worse. So, you don't have to do as much hectic work like you're doing, but you have to do bigger projects. And most of the time, you don't have anyone to help you. And a lot of the time, especially in research, but even in teaching, you don't know whether it's possible to do. So you just have to jump fearlessly at it. And half the time, you just splat on the ground, broken bones and blood. And then you pull yourself to reassemble yourself and say, okay, I survived that, I'll move on. Then you also get life. There's life outside of work, and you have duties there. And every step of the way, you lose some fear and you gain accomplishment. It's happiness and a lot of purpose and meaning in life that you get, and a lot of uncertainty that drops away once you've done your studies and know that you can do stuff, and then you got career and partners and life and all of this stuff. But at the same time, the cost of this is you're chipping away at your freedom and time. And it's a good trade, I find. In fact, these days, sometimes I sit down, okay, it's a holiday time. I want to, damn it, play a computer game. I'll take time out to play some computer game. And then I find myself, once I've got past the intro stages of the game, that's sort of tricky and hard. And now I'm thinking, damn, my brain I recognize that feeling in my brain. That's when I'm working and doing research. And I love doing research. And why am I playing this game, which is now just annoying and stressing me? So it's really sort of flipped tables. And you might know Shenzhen EO or Human Resource Machine and some of the other ones where they actually simulate doing what I do for research. Or Shenzhen EO takes it even one step further. It's such a brilliant game, but I don't want to play it because it's a really realistic simulation of what you do in a actual job. So why am I doing that when I could do my job? And I like my job, So the notion of spare time gets a little bit muddy as well. It shrinks, but it's hard to say what's job and what's fun and what's work. And
so more on that, actually. There is a rumor. There's two rumors about your mysterious activities. One of them is that you love bouldering. And you do bouldering quite a lot. When did you get started in bouldering, and why do you enjoy it?
Yeah, awesome. And I might have actually met some of you there. Thanks if you came up to me in the gyms there, just 9 degrees or whatever. That was way back. My dad took me out bouldering and bushwalking, and back then bouldering wasn't a thing, and even climbing wasn't really a thing. My dad and his mates, when many years back here in Sydney, when they were studying, they had hemp rope, which isn't elastic. So when you fall, there was no harnesses, so you tie it around your rib cage, and if you break a rib or two, extra loud. And then they made their own equipment, like they actually forged and metal worked the stuff that you knock into rocks and stuff like that. So you say, once in a while, if you look closely in the Blue Mountains, you might see some of those old relics. Even at the Three Sisters, and the ethics of climbing was not a thing there neither. There's a really beautiful, visible to everyone, possibly sacred monument. Yay, let's just bash it to pieces. But there's so much, and now there's more. But anyway, I learned to love that, and sort of gone in and out of it. Like where I've moved around the world, maybe there's nothing, but now there's gyms everywhere. And I'm not bouldering at the moment because I had a back injury a year and a half ago, and I ignored it, and I knew I shouldn't. But bouldering is so much fun, and and I'd just come home a cripple twice a week. But you have 3 days, and suddenly I'm not a cripple. Yeah, time for bouldering again. But in December, I really overdid it and snapped 2 discs out of my back. I went to the surgeon, and I was in monstrous pain. In I couldn't sleep, I couldn't lie down, I couldn't sit, so I had to just walk around the apartment for, I think it was just under 4 weeks. And that was so interesting. You can segregate pain, and it doesn't necessarily, you can live with it, you can even be happy, but you can't do stuff. You just can't think, you can't, half the time you can't do your work. So luckily a surgeon took one look at me without even the scans and everything and said, "Young man, Oh, thank you. I didn't say that, but I thought it. I don't know you, but you are in serious trouble. Oh, okay. And that was good. So he could expedite an operation. So I had a spine operation in December 23rd, and some nice recovery, and I'm all good. I really want to go bouldering again, but I might be sensible this time around, because now I know how, that's it's actually, people are, if you didn't have access to surgery and stuff, you'd be some swear word or something. Look, when I can touch my toes again and don't sort of groan, standing up, then I'll maybe see you bouldering again. In the meantime, maybe some rope climbing.
Another one that's often you remember about is that you used to apparently cycle to uni every single day and back. Like, I remember people be like, I just saw a Britz in the pouring hail. cycling to from uni. Like, why do you enjoy cycling so much? How often would you say you cycle now that it's like you don't have to come to uni as much? Yes, I know it's Echo Evan, sorry.
Well, this was a while ago. I just cycled in. Damn, I'm late, so sort of all sweaty a bit when I came here. But this was only from Zetland, 4 k's away, not even Green Square or whatever. But I lived a bit further away, and about 6 years ago, I think I was up Cromer past DY, and before that, I also lived near Bankstown, Revesby, those sort of areas. So it's roughly about 25, 30 kilometres, and first I was driving by car, and that sucked. And oh damn, I'm late, and there's a queue, and I fall asleep at the wheel. Damn, that was just too stressful. Okay, what about motorbike? The chances of falling asleep are a bit less, and you can sort of weave in the traffic, and that was good. Except I thought I'd get a BMW secondhand. That's got to be reliable, but it turned out to be the worst motorbike I've ever had. Damn it. Okay, but I'm getting fat, and really, I'm not exercising. I just moved to Australia, and in Denmark, you're very active in just the way you live. You don't have cars, and you don't. So suddenly, I was finding myself fat and unhealthy, and getting a bit sort of claustrophobic in my own body, and saying, okay, let's get a push bike, and got a really crappy, cheap $30 secondhand BMX, and took about two hours to. I was about dead when I got to uni. So, okay, this is not working. What about an electric bike? And I got one of the early ones. Had to do severe modifications to get it to work. But anyway, and that was actually lovely. And then by the time the battery ran out, I think after a 10,000 K or something, then I was fit enough to say, well, okay, I don't actually need the battery. I'm not really using it anymore. So get not an expensive bike, but some decent, sturdy bike. And then that was it. And it was a lot. It was about 50 minutes to, about an hour each way, roughly, plus minus, and where I'm going full pace. But, I'm not good in the morning. And if I had to have a morning lecture and I've just ridden for an hour and been really happy with endorphins and adrenaline, and, oh, damn, I almost got killed by that truck. Yay. No, sorry. But actually, the motorways are actually safer than half the city traffic. But you can go at whatever speed you want, and just no red lights, and you got 5 meters, 10 meters of lane to yourself. And I still miss that. But I did get tired, and my body got achy by the end of the term, and I was climbing a lot at the time, and I miss it. But now I have more time, and I suppose I should take care of my back too. So okay, just one last comment. That was fun, but I did it more for practical reasons. So North Europe, as you might know, people cycle around all the time, and it's not a thing. You don't put Lycra on, you don't put a helmet on, you just go. So that's where it comes from. It's not because I have a particular fetish for bikes.
Cool, awesome. Thanks for that. Zach, can I ask the next question?
Ooh, yeah. This is a fun one. Any accidental oops during live lectures or streams?
Oh, heaps, all the time. Actually, some of you might be able to, what was the one today? Oh, there was one today. Someone made I often am drinking Coke, and then someone made a joke, you don't have your Coke today, what about some cocaine? And then, these are, I should know by now that I just ignore. But I turned it into a joke, and then I thought, there's a nice little anecdote about some old friends who were in Bolivia and ate cocoa leaves, which is a very different thing, I should say, than sniffing cocaine. Cocoa leaves and cocaine, it's refined and unrefined. It's processed and unrefined. So please don't sniff cocaine. That was not what I'm saying. But if you find yourself in Bolivia and eat cocoa leaves, then it's legal and fine, and that's it's not the same. But I still should learn after all these years just to ignore those things. But I sometimes wonder, damn it, that came out wrong, and that's going to be misunderstood. Anyway,
apparently people are saying that the camera keeps focusing on your forehead in discreet.
Yeah, well, I don't know what I should get. Maybe I should get a separate camera because I'm working on my laptop. I've got 2 laptops. And when I, right at the bottom of my screen, then I start pressing the buttons with my hand. So I open up the screen and there you can see the ceiling instead of my face. So maybe my setup should be. I'm looking at this beautiful setup here, and I'm really in awe and a bit of envy at the setup that you guys here have got. I've just got some crappy standard equipment. I wouldn't know how to do what you're doing. So
yeah, I think a lot of it is just painful. We set this up pretty fast because we've done this for the last couple of weeks. But the first week, it took quite a while to get it all set up because we hadn't used most of the equipment before because most of it's pretty new.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Walid. I see one that was from the other year. Oh, yeah. I think culture's changed a bit. I sort of made similar jokes. I was trying to describe what composition of functions is. And I like sometimes some examples that are a little bit extreme so that they stick in your head. I don't want them to be, I don't want anyone to get sad or offended or hurt or, say, what are you on about, mate? That's just not funny. But I think I was creeping towards the edge on Monday with cute bunnies that were in a meat grinder. Sorry about that if that was a bit. I thought after the lecture, was that too much? Damn it. Sorry if that was too much. And anyway, we did rescue the bunny afterwards. It was all, no imaginary bunnies have been harmed during the making of this lecture. But still.
Cool. Awesome. Another question from Tom.
So when you get stuck on a maths problem, what do you do?
Usually that's when I'm doing research, and in that case, in that sort of context, you're stuck on maths problems. I mean, you're just stuck on them. And yeah, exactly. You just look at this and you by now I don't give up hope. You just look at it and say, well, I can't do it, so I'll try to think of what I can do. And then you might be in the shower or, shopping or whatever, and suddenly, or cycling is actually pretty good, or walking around. Then, oh, wow, I've got an idea. And then you rush over, and before you've forgotten it, write your good ideas down, by the way. I overestimate my memory so many times. But then you try this idea and, it didn't work. Okay. And then, after a couple of that, then you find one that does, and, okay, I got 1% of the answer. Yay! And you keep on doing it until... But that's research. What about the stuff that you're doing? Well, the same sort of thing is true. You need persistence. I mean, it's very nice to be a genius and very nice to be, highly trained in all of this, neither of which I am, by the way. But, but the thing that really gets you ahead, both in research, but even now, is just that you don't give up. Like, you're allowed to, do everything. It's okay to feel stupid. It's okay to even be stupid to some degree. I'm very stupid compared to a lot of my colleagues, but I don't give up, and I want to see the underlying. I want to visualize what's going on in a problem. So yeah, don't give up. Just keep going, and don't worry, you'll get there. And also, of course, help each other. Especially you. I'm often alone with my research, but you've got hundreds of people around you. Help each other. It's not a competition. It might have been a competition sometimes in high school or whatever. Now it's definitely not, So, yeah.
Yeah, great. Cool. So our next question here is, in your opinion, what is the most important aspect of excelling in math, both research and in general?
Sort of builds off the last question as well, a little bit.
Yeah. It depends on what you want to use it for. If we want to take a really practical, I suppose I've got 2 answers. One is at a very practical level. If you do any sort of maths, like university maths, especially at a good university and a good, actually, number 1 bit of propaganda here, number 1 school of maths in Australia and probably this hemisphere, then you are going to get a job, and you're probably going to get an interesting, good job of your choosing, and it doesn't have to be in this sector or that sector, because jobs are getting much more generalized and much more abstract. So, memorization stuff is dropping away, and I've got doctors who, after decades of happily not having seen maths, they're suddenly complaining, what? Now I have to learn statistics, and I have to arithmetic, and what are these fractions? So everything is getting more mathematical, more high level. So like discrete math you're talking about, that's about thinking. It's that sort of maths. It's not about, you don't need to necessarily know how to solve this equation or integrate that stuff. That's not what it's about. It's about mathematical thinking. So if you get a mathematical education that's taught you how to think, then you're really good for the job market and you can get jobs. And as I say, in all sorts of areas, and the areas are increasing. And if you go to the top, 200 jobs, there are rankings in various journals and outlets that rank the jobs which are best. And that's a very subjective thing, but it's almost consistently that the top 10 jobs are they used to be mathematician, but now they could be called like a data scientist, which is a mathematician in disguise, or actuarialist, or statistician, or et cetera, et cetera. So you've got a big chunk of maths there, and I don't think people understand that when they're in high school. What do we need to use maths for? Well, these days it's everything. So, but the other answer is that if you do upgrade your brain in this way, then your brain is better in these ways. I mean, there are many, many ways of thinking, and it won't get you better at understanding necessarily emotions or narratives or so many other things, sport, art, whatever. But you will be able to understand a lot that's important just to be living in society. Like if someone says something to you, you won't, if you've had a maths education, you won't just believe them. You'll think about it and say, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand it. Could you please repeat? And if they're trying to con you, then you won't fall for it. Or if you meet someone and disagree with them, then because of the way that mathematics is moderately unique in that we try to work together to find better truths, rather than saying my interpretation is better than yours, Professor X. So it leads you to, and computer science for this matter, all of these comments are true for computer science as well. Data science, statistics to some degree. They help you understand that you might come from problems at two different angles, but that you can work together to find a common, even better truth for you all. And that's really, really helpful just to have healthy society, democracy and all of this stuff. It's not just about maths or computer science or jobs or whatever. It's about living, Don't get conned by advertising, and be able to be a responsible human being living in society, civic duties and stuff. So that's how I think of education. And once in a while I'll veer off on a tangent and give you students, if you're in my courses, more than you wanted, but damn it, that's my job. You're here to get education, not skills.
That's true, and I think that's a quite an often undervalued part of uni, right? People go into a course expecting to learn very specific things and figure out some of the social and sort of educational sort of outcomes. Which is really interesting. We have a few also interesting questions come in. One of them is, what is your favorite place to eat at when you're eating out?
Well, I've just moved to Zetland, so I'm full of new love, in love with my new surroundings. So there's an awesome, one of the best sushi places, also really cheap. And there's probably the best Thai restaurant I've ever been to, super cheap. There's a really good Italian restaurant, super cheap. I don't go out often, maybe once a week or something, mainly cook myself, which these days I'm surprisingly good at. I used to be so crap for so many. I thought it was just, you can and you can't, or you can't, and I just I'd eat I'd eat it and I like it, but if I serve it to anyone else, they'd look at it and say, are you serious? But these days, so I enjoy cooking and, finding good bargains in supermarkets and just cooking up some awesome stuff from, that you wouldn't think could be turned into a meal. There's a bit of a mathematical challenge in that, I think. But just a challenge in general. But most types of foods I like. I have a problem with celery. You can make a good soup, like a French celery soup, but otherwise it's a useless vegetable. A kale, yes. Sometimes if you hide it very well in a curry. I tend to be. I try to be vegan. When I was on and off. Try to be ethical about living to some extent. I mean, you can take it too far and then you just die. Just the act of living is, in many senses, unethical. But we're here and we should enjoy our lives. And so it's sort of a balance, and it changes throughout life and who you are and your context. But these days, if you eat some quinoa, you've done far more damage than if you eat Australian beef. Or let's say that you get flown in some actually good produce from Queensland, where you could have got it produced actually healthier from China and shipped all that way, so local doesn't. It's a very complicated matter. And the simple boxes that people tend to put in these ethics. It's good that people are starting to think about these things, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. As a researcher, I just don't like simple labels like that. So, and the ethics are actually fine. At the moment, I've sort of given up a bit on that because I have a partner and we are in a friendly war together. I cook a vegan food and she cooks me meaty, cheesy food, and it's a good deal for both of us. But I think she's winning at the moment. Her food's actually better than mine. But I'll revenge, and then there'll be vegan again. So
that's really awesome.
Cool, yeah. This is a pretty fun one. You might want to prelude this one as well.
Oh, yeah,
with a bit of an explanation. So the question here is, what is your favorite error correcting code? So maybe for our listeners who don't know what an error correcting code is, you can give like a 30-second.
Yeah. 30 seconds. Cool. Well, error correcting codes, they're used to transmit information that might get a bit buggy during transmission, so there might be some noise. Like I'm talking to you now, and sound waves, and then there's a microphone. There's a whole lot of intermediate stages before you hear what I'm saying, and I'm mumbling, by the way, too. So you might not, and I've got an accent and all of these things. It might make it harder for you to understand what I'm saying because of all those factors. But you actually have error correction going on in your head. So you've got codes in your head, actually, which sort out all the noise and the confusion, and then you understand what I'm saying, hopefully, most of it. And that we can do that mathematically. In fact, I think that's actually what your brain actually does mathematically, but we can do that in very formal ways with linear algebra and codes and stuff like that. My favorite code has got to be the Hamming code. It's useless for error correction, but it's so simple, and it ties into a lot of history of error correction history, but also information theory, which has this beautiful, unique history of scientific advance, which, if you see, okay, I'll skip the 30 seconds you said. This has got to be like 30 minutes, but if you want to hear more, then 3411, Math 3411, shows you all about it. Advertisement. Actually, one thing that you might not know, we're learning more and more about how like the Aborigines, the indigenous, did all sorts of things, really sophisticated technology for almost 100,000 years. And a lot of the things that we're returning to now via computer science, internet, etc., we're rediscovering them from ancient times, not just the indigenous here, but around elsewhere, but especially here because it was a relatively isolated setup here on the continent, or the continents. And they're the old stories. Like, if you tell someone a story and they tell someone the same story, then it won't go very many links before the first story and the last story are very, very different. Like, we're not good at it. But if you have very, very good error correction, and we're talking over, let's say, 50,000 years, like, how can you have one story that's exactly the same 50,000 years later of no writing things down, just telling? And they had very, very good mechanisms for doing that, including simple error correction. And their code was, okay, here is a teller of these stories, and they will train 2 kids to train those stories, and the kids will sort of, probably not literally, but figuratively, beat the storyteller with sticks if they get anything wrong. So the storyteller has to keep saying the same thing, and at the same time, those 2, so it's not just one that carries on, it's 2. So you've got also, the error correction property there, that you've got redundancy. So these 2 are trained up, and that way, if you design your society, and this is social design, just like we're doing now with the internet, social design, just with optic cables, but also people, then you can do things like this. So it's not just about writing numbers down in codes and computers. It's what we've always been doing, really.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Let's move on to this question. Tom, do you ask this one?
Sure. Given we are the School of Computer Science, what's your favorite programming language and why?
Oh, thanks. That's a hard one to ask because I'm a terrible programmer. I'm an amateur, and I'm sitting here in a room with 3 people who are probably like 1,000 times better at programming than me. But I love programming. My very first program was Basic, Amstrad Basic. And I revisited last year, sort of last year with COVID lockdown and everything. I found myself with a bit more time and sort of a lot of old memories flooded back, and I got an emulator I don't know. But I really recommend going to some of those old school languages because they're so clunky. And you can't do much with them, but what you can do with them, you can do straight away, and you can get graphics on the screen with one command. You don't have to load a lot of packages and set up this. You can just do stuff. And a bit like now we've got I forget what kids use. Is it Scratch? Something close. Yeah. And there's another one which is Code Combat. There are a couple of others that are really accessible, and it's very much like that. And beautiful languages. And then when I wanted my basic things, my basic programs to get a bit more sophisticated, then I thought, okay, I'll learn assembler. And when that wasn't quite fast enough, then okay, I'll just learn machine code. And all of that was fun in this. I'm sort of returning to that now. There was a decade or two when C came and replaced all that stuff, and then I think Java as well. That scared me a bit off because the paradigm was very different, but they were also talking it was complete overkill. Everything had to be object-oriented. No, you don't have to do it. That's cool too, but I just want a sprite to move around when I'm drawing, when I'm moving the tapping left or right arrows, I don't need to have this big edifice. So that sort of put me off it. But then I returned with Maple, and then that got me back into Python. Oh, such a beautiful language. But again, a similar thing. Now that I need to, in some of my research do really, really large scale combinatorial searches, then I've been forced to look at C, and that was so scary and painful to begin with, and I didn't know what I was doing. But once I sort of little things clicked, and I said, wow, this is an awesome language. It's so precise and fast, and if it stuffs up, you're to blame. You can't blame it on weirdnesses of Python, and okay, this is embarrassing. I shouldn't tell all of you. This is exactly the wrong forum to do it, but I will, lay all my cards on the table. Just to speed things up, I had a recursive search in Python, and then I thought, wait a minute, recursion. And I don't know, all the theory, but I was thinking, after a couple of years of doing this sort of stuff, it dawned on me, wait a minute. That's got to be a lot slower than just having a whole lot of for loops. If I know how deep things are, then I just have 200 for loops nested. And then I looked at online, and everyone was saying, don't nest for loops. And I said, why not? And I just went and did it. And then I realized in Python you can't nest more than 19 levels. And what? I need 200. It's okay, damn it. I'll have to go and do a bit of C programming. And that was, once I could do that, then suddenly my fear dropped away and said, why haven't I been doing this for the last... So now I think my main programming loves are C and Python. I wanted to get into several others. What was that one? The little hacky one that people used for about 20 years ago. Everyone had to do just, you had sort of Python emerging, but you had this tiny little one where you just had a whole lot of symbols that were good for parsing text. And thanks. Yeah, Perl. Yeah. That scared me off. And now that I sort of... okay. Oh, I'm so happy to hear this because I thought, okay, you're not stupid, go away. Whereas computer science students, Perl is easy. Okay, thank you. A little bit of a chip on my shoulder for the last 20 years has dropped away. Thank you very much.
Yeah. One of the courses that runs in term 1 for second year students teaches Perl.
Wow!
And it's a good course. A lot of people take
it.
I think I failed the Perl component of that course.
On a tangent, related note, have you ever looked at functional sort of programming as opposed to object-oriented programming? Given that you do like a lot of maths and stuff, I think that might be a bit more up your alley.
I'm so embarrassed to say that I wouldn't even know how to define what functional programming is precisely. I know that. I think that Haskell is such a thing. And I've got a colleague or two who say that it's awesome, and I've even downloaded and installed it, but that was 5 years ago, and I never got it further than that. is that sort of like defining functions and procedures, or is it a different thing?
Yeah, Zach, do you want to give like a quick explanation? I can if you want.
I can as well.
Oh, Tom's.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Tom.
The fundamental thing about functional programming in my head is that there's no such thing as state. So an imperative language is like C. You execute line 1 and then you execute line 2 and then you execute line 3. And you can have a variable on line 1 that has the value 7, but on line 2 has the value 9, for instance.
Yeah.
In functional programming, that doesn't exist.
Awesome.
So you have to sort of define everything in terms of, well, this is actually, this constant here is in terms of this and this and this, and you write different functions that then also come together.
Yeah.
The best example of a functional programming language, and the most widely used one, is Excel's functions.
Oh,
so it's kind of like you change
different
things, and you can't set variables in it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I came here just to happily chat. I have actually learned something that I was wondering about for years.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So there's very common.
That was a very good explanation too.
There's a very popular CompSci course, Comp 3141, that teaches like basics of functional programming.
Yeah.
And it's really a course.
Software construction.
Yes.
I think you'll find there's a lot of people call it the Haskell course.
It doesn't teach functional programming, I'm wrong, but that's a byproduct of the course. But yes.
Have you, also curious, have you played around with any sort of like proof assistance or mathematically focused?
Yeah, I was sitting there while you're explaining, that sounds like those sort of programs which proof some of the big... I've never done that. I've talked with an old friend and colleague about doing that at some point, but it's a lot of work. To prove anything sort of significant in mathematics, you'd have to spend like a couple of years just looking at that one proof. Whereas on the other hand, if you did look at an important proof that needed verifying, then you'd be famous, and so it would be worth the effort. But it's really interesting though, and right now, and you might, all of you listening as well, you might know much more than me, but the way that AI, machine learning, etc., has developed recently and done stuff that we thought would take a lot longer to do, chances are that a lot of sort of low-level mathematical stuff like proof verification could be done by AI systems a lot quicker than we think they would. I don't want to exaggerate. Like with AI, there's like I was looking at some old. I'm editor of this journal Parabola, school thing since the 1960s, and I was a couple of months ago I had to give a talk about it, the history of it, and I was looking through old journals, and there's this paper from around about 1969 or 1970 or something, some editorial where they're saying, and Mirsky, some godfather of computer science you might have recognized, he says that it's the singularity event will happen in 3 years' time, and then then the computers will be far more intelligent than et cetera, et cetera. So, and this sort of overestimating the rise of AI is sort of balanced with the underestimation of it as well. It's going at unpredictable paces, but it's moving forward at a pace that right now is quicker than it usually does. And look, in 20 years' time, I don't know whether I'll have a mathematical job. Maybe even 10. I don't think 10 years, but 20 years is probably not unlikely. I don't know. Given the history of wrong prophecies in this area, but look. They never thought that a game like Go or StarCraft or whatever could be, within the next 50 years or 20 years. And now that they've done that, and they're doing so many other things, and it's been democratized. Like it's not just this research group at Harvard or like MIT or Google or whatever. Now all of us can use machine learning. So we can do AI. So the whole world is contributing. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe in 10 years' time we can. Use nice software that can proof check, your all the proofs that you're doing in first year, maybe second year, maybe all the research that I'm doing, even, like getting our AI minions, and in the end, we'll probably be the minions. We'll be looking at the AI systems are spitting out all this maths, and we don't understand any of it. And how did you reach that? How did you understand it? And then we'll just be like YouTube bloggers or whatever, Twitch streamer, and say the theorem of the week. Out of the trillion results, big significant results that the AI system, this is significant, and we look at it, we don't understand it. Why is it significant? Don't you understand that? No, we don't. Okay, but look, it's pretty. Look, it's got brackets around it, and like, oh yeah. And so maybe the role of mathematician will be sort of like that, just to comment on what these bigger systems, and then you just like, you know how if you built a chair or built furniture or whatever back in the day, you know, if you wanted a chair, you went to the local person who built chairs. Of course, you don't do that. You go to IKEA or wherever, you know, Gumtree. Or but if you want a really fancy chair or someone to build it, there are still carpenters around. So there will still be mathematicians around doing special, interesting, clever maths or whatever. That, at least that's my vision of the future. Unrelated to Haskell and functional programming software. Sorry for the tangent.
Cool.
As far as I can tell.
Yay!
Tangents are good.
Oh,
Cool. So I think we'll
That's our
do.
normals.
Yes. I think we'll do one question and then do like a 5-minute break, just so everyone can sort of have some water.
yeah.
Or other drinks. This question is related to that last comment, being, why do you like Coke so much?
For one thing, Coke is bad for you. So all of you wanting me to drink water, yes, you're right. But at the same time, if I drank water, then I'd just fall asleep in the middle of the lecture, and that would not be good for you. So I am suffering on your for your education.
To clarify, it's like Coca-Cola here, right? Not
Yeah.
cocaine.
Oh yes. Oh no.
I was genuinely I thought the other thing when I looked at the question, I was genuinely unsure. I just wanted to...
No cocaine. Cocaine, I'm strongly guessing, is not good for educational purposes. But it will give some. I don't know. Would give some bad lectures. I'm pretty sure I'd be more manic and tangential than usual. I'm sure. But and I hope that you're not sitting at home. Yeah, so bad idea. But yeah, Aldi Coke and I have to succumb to Woolies Coke at the moment. Woolies Coke because I'm lazy and Woolies is closer. But it seems to do the trick. And if I have a 2-hour lecture, especially a fun lecture, then I don't need Coke. But if it's a really sluggish lecture where you're bored, I'm bored, then the Coke actually has a nice effect. I mean the drinkable stuff again, not the stuff that don't do illicit drugs.
All right, cool. With that, I think we're going to go on a break for some water and just chill. And we'll be back in about 3 to 5 minutes. So we'll see you soon. Also, don't forget the questions link is in the pins. So if you have some questions that you think of in the break, feel free to submit. Not on break for Coke. No, I don't think we have any with us. We could run to Macca's and get some. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Really what we should
Push to talk. That's right. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for bearing with us. We're going to start again with a really, really interesting question. What is your favorite character in Shrek?
Well, Shrek's pretty awesome. Donkey's annoying, but you sort of end up liking him, and then you like him a lot. And Fiona's, of course, kick-ass. And I mean, you can't go past the gingerbread man. Very stoic and suffering under torture, but still a won't buckle. Probably forgetting a whole lot, but the cat never. Yeah, you sort of have to like the cat. But Banderas, he's always a good actor. Even, but no, never really. No, that seemed a bit too forced. Yeah, of course, the tiny little prince. What's the name in the first one? I mean, he's deliciously despicable, and so you can't help. Oh, you almost want to give him a cuddle, sort of, and a slap. Behave. In that order, I think.
That is a great answer. I love that so much. Cool. Zach, can I ask this question?
Yeah, cool. So with our big transition from a lot of in-person stuff, although they've been recorded and or live streamed even, most of it's gone online now. Do you enjoy the sort of features of teaching online, like the really easy chat interaction and stuff like that? Or do you
definitely.
would you rather be going back to the in-person?
board, and I was a really bad student in my first couple of years, and I didn't get the, I wouldn't have got a perfect WAM. So you can make up for it later, but the WAM doesn't matter too much, but just to be aware of those things that you might want to do later. Some of those do require sometimes high WAMs, like a PhD at maths. I think you need basically 87 WAM or bigger at not general WAM, but maths specific. And it's a bit contextual. It's not that firm, but that's these are things to bear in mind at least. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So this question is good question.
So there are quite a few people in the chat who are teachers as well. I think
awesome.
All of your interviewers as well.
Yeah.
So what are your
represent? Sorry.
What are your hot takes on how math is taught, both from even a primary level to a uni level?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry to swear, but it's crap. Not only in Australia, but here we are in Australia. It is taught well in a few other places around the world, but not many places, because you've got a lot of factors. One is that maths is hard compared to a lot of it's got a bit of a steeper learning curve than most. You've got to be precise. You've got to think at higher abstraction level. And that's not necessarily a problem. Like if you've gone to, 3 blue, 1 brown, you can have very, very sophisticated, high-level thinking that is presented to everyone, that everyone can understand. So, but it's harder to do than other subjects. Teachers aren't very qualified here. Like in some countries, you have to have a master's degree in what you're teaching in high school before you can start thinking about teaching that subject in high school. If they did that here, then the standards would raise. But here they've got the two other problems, which is that there's just not enough teachers. So if you're thinking of teachers teaching, good on you. Awesome. We need more good maths teachers and teachers in general. The other thing is that the people designing the curriculums, what you actually have to learn in schools and high schools, they don't do maths. One of my colleagues, Peter Brown, he was on a committee for the national curriculum looking at some part of the maths component, a big part, and he kept finding mistakes. There were 17 people on the committee. He was the only mathematician, apart from the chairperson, who was also a mathematician, but who wanted the whole process expedited because this is for the ministry, etc. So the ministry, of course, just says, we want better education, but they don't really know what it is. The Gonski reform, both 1 and 2, are deeply flawed. I mean, I had a 15-minute glance at the version 2 and spotted on page 16, one of the recommendations just didn't make sense, and the 2,000 people had gone into it. How many of them were actually mathematicians? I mean, probably a half or something. Poor teachers, poor schools, poor students, if they are forced to learn all of this, well, again, crap. You got to learn about this, and then you also have to learn about this, but just in order to pass an exam, because we want the assessments to, make sure of quality control, but also, this school has this ranking, you have that ATAR. But what about the understanding? So get rid of almost all of the math and slow it down. Get people to understand, you don't have to do homework. You don't have to have long hours. Finland has 4 hours of teaching per day, no homework, lots of school, lots of socialization. That's, and they do far better than pretty much anyone in the world. So luckily, the good news is when you get to university level, we can begin to fix that shit. So, cool. But there's a bit of a steep learning curve to begin with because of that discrepancy.
Yeah, so can we take a quick interlude? We've got a bit of a data visualization. If you scroll up in the chat a bit.
Yeah.
So you answered earlier. We asked you if you'd rather be twice as hard or half as tall.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, thanks, Waleed. Well, look, I'm not sure about that. Now I looked half as tall.
Oh, cool. Nice. Right. Moving, I guess, more
That's awesome.
into the whole lines of uni, as you sort of mentioned. Is academia a good career path, and should somebody do honors or masters? And if so, why?
Yeah. Oh, great question. Being in academia and being in a school that's awesome, but is far too good at helping students get jobs out in industry. We actually have a severe lack of PhD students, so I'd be tempted to give you, a whole lot of, spam, academia, and PhD students and stuff like that. But Well, I can say there are two answers. One is my personal experience. I suppose that's pretty indicative of the whole thing. You have to work damn hard to get into academia at every step. Like, you're working really hard so that you can get, to the next level and the next level, and then you do some, then you get your, your undergraduate degree, and then you go on to a master's or PhD. And once you've done that, that's a bit harder even. It slows down. You don't have too much to do, but you have to do harder things, and you get more responsibility. And then there's a terrible phase after the PhD. Like, the PhD is a bit like, it's in fact exactly the same as trades. Like, if you want to be a plumber or a carpenter or whatever, it's the old school structure of trades and what are they called? Guilds. So you're as a PhD student, you're an apprentice, and when you get your PhD degree, you know the basics. That's your sort of like the basics. And then you have the journeyman period where you go from master to master, traveling around the world, learning how to be a master. And if you're very lucky and work hard and are persistent and don't give up because it's a hard, you're sort of writing applications, you're traveling all the world trying to get a job, then you can become a master, which is, a lecturer at a university. And then the job starts. Then you have to learn how to be a master properly. And at every step, right up to professor, and I suppose, then there are levels far beyond that as well. Everything gets harder, but you get stronger, wiser, and, you deal with it. So it's an extremely hard career path. It's a bit like being a musician or sports person. There's strong competition, so there are not a lot of spots for it. On the other hand, it is full of meaning and purpose. And, I love my job. So, I'm willing to give up spare time. And like, I could go to the city and get a job which would pay, let's say, 2.5 times what I'm doing now, to work far less, like 2.5 times less. And I'd twiddle my thumbs and get some good pay. And, I'd have to actually get up in the morning and put a suit on. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't have to do that anymore. But I'd lose all my autonomy. I'd have a boss telling me what to do, what to look at. And, if I'm getting somewhere in a project and it's getting exciting, the boss could say, no, okay, time for a new one. Or tell me to do stuff that doesn't make sense. So I've got freedom now. I do have bosses, but they're so lovely. And they, a couple of times check in, are you okay? Can we help you? No, you're doing okay. We just have to produce, so there's no time for bullshit either. I don't have to impress anyone. I don't have to waste time on, meetings and speaking up. I just have to get shit done. I have to do my research, I have to do the teaching, I have to do a whole lot of administration. And almost all of that is really meaningful. I love teaching. I love finding new research. Even the administration is fun. Like, I'm editor of a couple of journals, main editor of Parabola, which, please, if you're listening, contribute to, and we always need good articles from you, problems. But also, like, I've been on various committees, and each of those committees is very different work. Could be, right now I'm on the sustainability committee, I'm academic advisor, I'm academic mentor, I'm first responder, I'm a couple of other things. I used to be the computing committee and the publicity committee for several years, done a lot there. All of these roles teach you a whole lot of different things, so there's always a new challenge. And then if you're foolish enough to be pressured into or conned into being promoted, then there are new challenges ahead, until you're a professor who has zero life. So should you do it or not? I'm happy with my choices. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just sort of found myself here. First, from fear of not doing well enough, fear of not knowing what to do if I didn't do this. But then afterwards, realizing, wow, this is the best job that I personally could have. Whereas, what about you? Well, if you love what you're doing, if you love thinking yourself, then this could be something for you. If you're teaching or if you're doing research and you're really loving it, then go for it. The nice thing here is that you can go from academia to industry or government or wherever. Things are getting much more fluid these days too, and these are not so boxy. And you can go back again too. I have colleagues who, in fact, one of my PhD students, right at the moment, he had a glorious and really cool career in law. He was a lawyer for many years, and then he retired and said, hey, I don't know anything about maths, but graph theory or networks or whatever, that seems pretty cool. And wait a second, I think I can use that on law. And then he contacted the university, and I got involved, and another professor, awesome professor at law did, and a third one, and he's been doing this PhD thesis about how to apply graph theory to law. And so, you can get into academia and get out of it at any point. If you want to make things smooth, then think about if you want to do it now and try to get your WAM up to get into that those sort of programs. But yeah, look, it's there's flexibility here, and the flexibility is only increasing with the way jobs are changing and the nature of salaries and work itself.
When you started your PhD, obviously, I assume you started because you were interested in the mathematics side of things, right? But we moved into a more professor teaching sort of role. Was that something you envisioned, or was that something that just happened along the way and you sort of went with it and enjoyed it, so kept going?
I had no idea what a PhD was, or I had no clue when I was in first year, started university. One of the reasons that I did a PhD was that, well, my parents were academics, and sort of academia is good. If you don't get a PhD, you'll die in a gutter. Okay, well, I gotta get a PhD. And then I had a couple of classmates from uni who went straight to uni. I took a couple of gap years, and I said, oh, okay, what they're doing looks cool, and they're happy. I want to do that too, and then they went into PhD, and I would. But one of the main reasons that I went into PhD was that in my very first year, there was this big, massive university party with 60,000. About let's say 10,000 students in a big hall, and everyone really drunk back then, and some locally famous band was playing, and I was just off my face because I wasn't very good at drinking alcohol back then, and they were just filling alcohol into us, and I don't remember so much from the evening except a glimpse, and one of the glimpses was mortifying. It was so embarrassing. I was there with my very lovely and kind mentors or tutors or whatever that was trying to take these groups of first year students and introduce them to university life, and I was saying, I'm going to do a PhD. And they were saying, oh, yeah, of course you are. But just realize that it's actually quite hard to get into the program. And, not everyone makes it that far. And I said, yes, I'm going to do a PhD. And I had no clue what I was saying. And then I woke up the day after and said, oh, no, what have I said? And every time, for the next 4 years, every time I sort of felt myself slacking off too much, I said, remember how embarrassed you were? You've got to make it true now. So that was good motivation. And once I was in it, then you do it. And I had a really lovely time doing the PhD. But I never thought that I knew that you had to teach and stuff like that, but I didn't know what a lecturer position was about. So when I got further on and started teaching, I enjoyed it. But I think, oh yeah, I just want to be a cool researcher and do research, and apparently I also have to do this teaching, and that's a bit of annoyance, especially because I was so painfully shy at the time. I wasn't great to begin with. In fact, I was sort of shit sometimes to begin with at teaching. But then as years went on, then I sort of discovered, hey, wait a minute, I actually like this teaching, and sometimes I like it a lot more than the research that I'm doing. Well, I'm having a identity crisis here, existential crisis. I'm not the researcher, I'm the lecturer. Oh, okay, I can like both. There's not, you don't have to. And then I even like the administration. And now I just love teaching. It gives you a real immediate rush, whereas the research, in maths, especially pure maths, you don't get an immediate rush very often, but at least you can look at it, and 20 years later, oh yeah, okay, you still can look at it. And 200 years later, hopefully my results will still be there. So, and then you got the administration somewhere between the immediate rush and the long-term contentment. So, yeah. Sorry for the overly long.
I just wanted to clarify: is what you're saying that we should all go and get really, really drunk and decide on our career path that way? Is that the advice that we should take away?
Definitely.
There's another question which has sort of turned into a tradition of asking. This is the third time we're asking this, but what's something you would go back and tell your younger self? Apart from to get drunk.
Yeah. That's a really interesting one, because the usual ones would be, like the advice that the first thing that I think of would be the advice that I give to, students or you or my kids or whatever. But I'm not sure that I should do that, because, for instance, that example with getting drunk and etc., that turned out to be really. I needed to be deeply mortified and embarrassed to have extra motivation. So that was actually useful. And sometimes you can be full of yourself and full of ego. You got to check that a bit. But that can be a good motivator too, and all of these things so it's a little bit, it's easy to be old and give advice, but it's got to do with the context. I suppose the best advice maybe is don't worry too much. Worry enough to get motivated, but look, regardless of what you do and study, as long as you work hard and do something that you're moderately good at or like, hopefully both, and usually both, then you'll be okay. A little bit of fear of failure and damn, I'll die in a gutter is good, but not so much that it cripples you. If it handicaps you or paralyzes you, then I hope that you can remember. Oh yeah, okay. Another one that's very related, which comes up all the time. Almost every single student that I've talked about in terms of am I good enough? Almost everyone, including me and including my colleagues, we all think that I'm not good enough. And it's funny, the people who are getting 99 out of 100, they're thinking it more than anyone, because I only got 99. I didn't get 100 like that guy there and that guy there. Oh, I didn't win the university medal. And, there's always something higher up that you can compare yourself to. And we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to things, but, that's the way we often act. So, look, do your work. If you just can't do it, then okay, find something else to do. There's other stuff to do. But usually the answer is that you can actually do it and you can do it well. But one of the main obstacles is fear. If you can use fear productively to drive you, just a bit of fear, that's good. If it's holding you back, then just be aware that everyone is in the same boat. Big professors I know are still really, really scared that one day everyone will realize that they're really stupid. What do you mean? Look at your CV. Look at all you've done. How can you be stupid? Well, actually, here's a nice story. I'm stupid. I'm not stupid, but I've got colleagues who are way better than I am at maths and research and all of this. But the other, about 3-4 months ago, two of these brilliant, really smart people came to me, and they've been working with some high-powered people, like sort of Nobel Prize type people, famous people, working in a group. And I'm down the corridor, in normal non-lockdown times, and I listen to them, and they're very smart. But they came to me and said, "We've been working on this problem for months, and we can't do it. And we know that you do combinatorics, and this is a combinatorial problem. Would you mind looking at it?" And say, "Oh, thank you very much for even talking to me." No, we're friends, and so we talk together. But in terms of maths, I looked at it and said, "Oh, that's a really lovely problem." And I worked away I spent some 2 days working on it, chipping away at it, and it all just fell into such lovely. And I wrote it up and sent it within 2 days, and now it's just been published in Proceedings of the American Maths Society, fancy journal. It's already getting cited, and that's not me being clever. That's me using the specific skills that I had to help some clever people. So you don't have to be super bright. You just have to do what try to broaden your skill set, deepen it, but find out what it is that you're good at. Find out who you can work together with. Like I have a colleague who's far brighter than me, but this colleague is not very good at getting good new ideas. I'm very good at thinking sort of outside the box, getting good ideas, but I'm not very good at finding new proofs or being detail oriented, whereas this colleague really is. So we've for years been thinking we'd be a perfect match. You get the ideas and I work out the maths, stuff like that, So it's not about being smart. It's and please just remember that if you're struggling sometimes and feeling self-doubt, and it's okay to feel self-doubt, but don't wallow in it.
I lost the questions.
Sorry about that.
There we are. Got it. Cool. Awesome. I think Tom can ask as well. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
I've asked all the questions tonight. So,
I've only spent an hour and a half with you, but so far it seems like you're actually very happy with life and doing pretty well. How do you stay so de-stressed as you seem to be and happy with life?
Well, for quite a long time, I was deeply miserable, suicidal, and depressed, and all of this. And one of the unhappy periods of my life was just after my PhD, and that's sort of a typical thing. You're looking, and people have midlife crisis around about 30, 35, 40, whatever, for the same reason. You're looking ahead at all these goals, and I got to achieve that, but you don't stop up to think, why do I have to achieve that, and what good will that do? And you sort of assume that I'll just be automatically happy, and my life will be fulfilled by achieving those goals. No, life just moves on and gets harder. So that's not good. So if you haven't thought about why you're doing something, then you can, when you achieve it, you might hit a brick wall of apathy and despondency, and you don't have anything to look forward to. You don't have goals, and you're sort of disappointed or vaguely unsettled and depressed because wasn't this supposed to be good? And you have those sort of little moments, but life moves on and you move on. And one way to get rid of those sort of patterns is to live life and know that you survive things and that you can accomplish things. That scary math problem, I couldn't do it. Okay, whatever, that one I could do. Okay, cool. And if you accomplish enough, and this is sort of me being old and a bit arrogant, most of you are starting your process here, there, and everywhere. Some of you have achieved a lot, maybe, but most of you haven't had time enough to achieve anything. So, but just know that you will achieve stuff, and then you'll be able to look at it, and then you won't be so scared about stuff. And when you do hit rough patches, like periods of your life, which does go up and down, you get depressed here, or life is a bit tough there, or whatever, then life does go on. And if you've been through a couple of those patches, you know that even the bad patches are something to be grateful for. Like there's something interesting, beautiful, and funny about all of those episodes in life, almost all of them. And I find it hard to say which. I mean, I can say when I was happy in life, but I can't say which parts of my life were good or bad, because if you're feeling miserable here because you're really studying hard and everything, well, that led to good periods later in life, and maybe those good periods made you complacent, which led to bad periods. So the first one was bad after all, and it's very hard to say. So, but yeah. After a bit of living, then you can look back and say, cool, it's awesome, and life is beautiful. And one tiny little bit of advice which is super useful is that almost every single little time slice of your life, like, you're lying, being tortured in someone's, whatever, hopefully not, but, even in the worst moment, you can stop up and just look around you. And there'll be something, either in your head or, what you see or listen to or whatever, that's pretty and beautiful. Like, there's beauty all around us. There's something to be interested in, to laugh at and, enjoy, even if you're not in a state to enjoy it. But it's there. Just because you feel shit and the world is suddenly dark, it's not that the world is dark. You're just in a little bubble, and it's there. It'll be there for you when you get out of the bubble. I hope that, it's so easy to give advice like that to, but at a more immediate thing, how do I stay happy under this? Well, right now, it's awesome to be with you. It's awesome to teach. There's stuff that's hard in my life, but right now it's pretty cool, actually. Last year, I shouldn't say this, so many people were suffering, having a hard time during COVID, but that was one of the best years in the last 20 years for me. Not directly necessarily due to COVID, just, life goes up and down and is predictable, and, enjoy the good bits, be grateful for it, and be stoic and grim and have a lot of humor, laugh at the bad bits, and yeah.
Great. So I'm sure we have quite a few people in this AMA listening right now who are involved in at least some form of teaching. I'm sure there's a lot of other people who are now, after hearing all this, interested in going into it. So what advice would you give to people who are trying to teach effectively?
Empathy. That's the main thing. Possibly persistence as well, but empathy is probably the main one. If you just read from a book, no one gives a shit. No one will learn anything. They won't. It's just a waste of everyone's time. If you're teaching in a school or high school, you might have to have a bit of persistence and patience with the curriculum and possibly colleagues. But the thing is just to try to own it. And okay, I've got to teach this, but I can put a twist on it so that it's interesting, or at least show some enthusiasm, and try to look at who you're talking to. How do they understand it, and what might be interesting to them? Try to put yourself in their shoes. And I think that's, especially in like when I'm teaching first year courses, the material itself is, from my perspective, having seen it for so many years, super easy. So that's not the challenge. It's more the challenge of trying to figure out what don't you understand, or what do you understand, and how can I make it, convey the sense of beauty and joy that I feel, and all of these things, while also not putting people off. If they just want to learn it and don't want to appreciate it, that's fine too. And I think that's even harder to do in high school. So I really respect, good high school teachers, because they have a captive, unwilling audience half the time. Whereas you come and study maths, you want to, for the most part, not always, but especially in first year. But it's so much more fun and easy to be with you, teaching you. So good on you, and and have a bit of empathy for yourself. Don't burn out. It's you put a lot of it. If you put a lot of emotion in it, it's like being a nurse or psychologist, or possibly a policeman. I don't know, but you got to also protect yourself and not spend all of your emotion and just burn out at some point.
Cool, awesome. Going back to some more random questions. A few people have seen you answering some questions on Quora. What made you sort of wanting to start answering and sort of helping the community on Quora?
Lovely. And check them out if you want. I tried to put in a bit of effort in that. First, look, I was sort of brought up in a very argumentative family where everyone was just arguing with everyone. And in sort of Scandinavia and Germany, sort of North Europe, there's a lot more, people just talk a lot more and discuss, actually maybe Europe in general. So when I came to Australia, I was more getting into arguments and fights with people online until I realized what was going on. So Quora was sort of a nice outlet for, instead of going on some Facebook rant or something, I'd try to be more constructive about this and say, okay, here's an interesting question, and then it struck me, hey, wait a minute, I can use this for, I can actually tell a lot of people a lot of good advice about maths or interesting stuff. And then I thought, oh yeah, I can also advertise better teaching methods, or I can advertise, for instance, Parabola, that journal I'm editor of, and Brilliant.org, and a couple of similar channels. And then I thought, okay, this is actually a tool that I can use. So, okay, my goal is just to get 1 million reads, and then because I could feel that I was getting very addicted to, writing little stories and crafting them, and spending. Oh shit, I should be doing my research, and then okay, once I get to 1 million, I'll stop. So that's where I stopped. I might get back into it one day, but I've also I find that the questions that now come up are variations of old, and if you want to be if you want to do good on Quora, you need to be a better writer than me for one thing, but you also need to push and market yourself a bit, and answer 10 questions that are basically the same, but just to get the views up. And that's not what I'm in it for. So, and please, all of you, get into doing sort of outreach stuff like that. You too. Like if I know some of you might be on Medium, for instance, if you're doing computer science and you found a bit of wisdom here, then let others share it. And Quora is sort of similar, except and of course Stack Overflow and other things like that, Reddit and Discord right now. So yeah, it's awesome that you have seen them, and let me know what you think of them, and if there's any of them that I should improve. Any of those posts.
Great. So we have a bit of a special question here based on the previous answer. So earlier on in the AMA, you told us that celery sucks. Celery is a terrible vegetable.
Yeah.
No. So we have a list of vegetables here, and we'd like a tier list.
Okay, cool.
So basically, I'll give you the name of vegetable, and you just put it at like a letter ranking. So A is really good, F is terrible, S is like, this is the best vegetable I've ever had.
So from A to
F is like,
yes.
And
okay, cool.
Best vegetables are S tier.
Oh, S tier. Oh,
yeah,
that's vegetables we're talking about. Yeah.
Super tier, sure. I'm sorry, vegetable purists. You may like to call me out on a couple of these not really being vegetables, but
no, tomatoes are fruit.
There we go. It's in there. All right, so let's start. Carrots.
C. A solid C.
Broccoli.
B plus.
Capsicum.
A.
Lettuce.
Depending on which, but let's give it a B plus.
Celery.
D. Not an F. D.
Not an F. Okay. Corn.
A. Well, actually, I should say the stuff that you get in the US doesn't actually taste like. I lived in Canada and lived in the US. But here in Australia, and this is going to be what I'm answering about, A.
Great. Mushrooms.
Depends very much on which. Let's give them a B minus. Some are really good, but some aren't.
Cabbage.
B. Yeah.
Spinach.
A minus.
Oh, nice. Onions.
A. For essential.
Potato.
A here in Australia and Denmark, and so terribly bad in Canada and the US. I mean, what are they? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that was shocking.
What about in fermented form?
In
fermented
form. I haven't tried that. Oh, yes, I have tried that. I have to give it a B minus. I did like that actually.
Fermented potato.
Yeah, it was. Sorry, I'm slow. Sorry. Yeah. No. I was thinking of the with soy and etc. But no, the I'll give it a B plus. It's a decent form of alcohol.
Great. Sweet potato.
B minus.
Green beans.
B minus as well, I think. Yeah.
Cauliflower.
Oh, I used to hate that as a kid. Oh, that was so bad. It was torture having to clean up the plate. But these days, in a good curry, I would give it a B minus.
Asparagus.
Oh, that's I'd say a C plus.
Not a good one. C plus. I think it's Britz F tier. And then our lucky last, tomato.
Oh, finally I get to use one of the the God-rated S's. S tier or whatever it was. God tier.
I want to add some more. What are your thoughts on olives?
On olives?
They're controversial.
Oh no, I have strong opinions on olives. Thank you very much. Oh no, a good big green olive in sort of many different ways you could serve it, but like in a good chili oil, that's hard to beat. Whereas those tiny little black seeded, sort of oily, tasteless, what am I doing with this food? Are you trying to poison me? Like, no. So yeah, it depends very much on the Kalamata I like, even though they're blackish.
What are eggplants?
Eggplant. Oh, I used to think that they were useless things, but they're really versatile and yeah, grating. No, they're good. Yeah, grating curries and baking and yeah, not too bad actually.
Is there anything we missed that's worse than celery?
Yeah, there are. Oh, yeah, there are actually several. Quite a lot, actually. Now that I think of it, I love vegetables, but there are so many there. What are those little tiny, like mini cabbages?
Oh, Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, I've learnt that if you bake them, then they can actually be nice. But before I learnt that, they would pollute any food that you came near it.
Some garlic and like herbs on it and bacon.
That is really nice.
I like that. A raw Brussels sprouts got to be F tier then.
Oh, raw Brussels sprouts. Oh no! Look, you wouldn't even want that in the fridge.
I think. What was the second last question?
Company one.
Oh no! I think Tom wants to wrap up with the last question that's become again a tradition as things have become. So yeah, take it away, Tom.
Yeah. So interviewing's really hard, and we're pretty lazy. So for the last question, we wanted to ask you, what question should we have asked, and what's your answer to that question?
Oh, wow. I thought you were some of the best. Oh, no, you've been fantastic, and as have all the people, all of you who are listening and writing. What one would I like someone else to... And the first person I was thinking, if I were to ask someone like G, you mentioned, and Buckland, and Daniel Mansfield, and all of the other awesome people I've got it. Any regrets, maybe something like that. But yeah, I don't know whether that's a good question. There's so many you could ask them. I don't know. Yeah, any regrets, I suppose.
What's the answer?
That's actually
sorry, intentional hang there. Yeah, look. Most of my failures I don't regret. Being lazy I regret a little bit here and there, but yeah, most of all I think I don't have too many regrets. I think once in a while, during life, I've not been as kind as I should have been, and sometimes I've been downright nasty. It's rare, but I regret those incidences. So please be kind to each other, be kind to yourself, and yeah, that way you can live without regrets.
Cool. That's actually really funny because last week we interviewed the head of school, so Aaron Quigley, and he had the exact same answer as in
awesome. Oh wow!
What were your regrets?
Yeah,
you should start asking that question too.
That's really cool. Oh, nice to hear. Yeah,
but that's it from us. Thanks so much for volunteering your time tonight. After you've been lecturing already, today.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
Everybody, if you want to say thank you, please write it in the chat.
Yeah, and maybe you can let us know if people want to hear more from you and take your courses and stuff like that. What should they go to?
Well, this year, right now, there's discrete math. And in T3, there's Math 3411. And next year, I'm not sure what's going to happen. If I'm very lucky, I'll get back to teaching combinatorics, or I could be given some completely new course, or maybe 3-5-2-1. And of course, there's projects and unofficial supervision, official supervision, and all of these things. And look forward to seeing all of you who might find themselves in one of my courses.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah, thank you so much. Also, you've been following the Discord channel here, but especially to CSE Society. I mean, you've done a fantastic job, and I'm honestly impressed with how much you got your shit together. I was saying that, like these are really professional people, and I'm very, very impressed. I don't know anyone at our school, even the lecturers, who just casually set up all of this very professional, just on the spot. So, thank you very much for inviting me, and I had a blast. And I look forward to seeing, listening in on the next one.
Cool, awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, and thank you everyone else. I think we'll end it there. These channels will be available for the next maybe hour or two, and then we'll close them off as we usually do. Recording will be put up soon, TM. But yeah, we'll let you know when that happens. Cool. Thanks everyone.